Have you ever been frustrated by a younger coworker's apparent lack of respect or poor work ethic? Or have you ever been irritated by an older coworker's seemingly unwillingness to change or resistance to trying something new? Well, if so, you're not alone. For the first time in history, there are 4 different generations that are working together. And they have widely different values and beliefs, and these differences can cause issues or friction in the workplace. Take our class, for example. We've got 2 different generations and a wide variety of current and future careers that are represented in our class. We've got everyone from police officers to instructors in the military, to lawyers, accountants, teachers, nurses, and police officers. And each of these different careers will be required to interact with different generations on a daily basis. Communicating with and working with people who have widely different views can be both frustrating and enlightening. Whether your experience is a negative one or a positive one will largely depend on your knowledge of the differences between each generation and your attitude towards working with and learning from those differences. My name is Mandy Gibson. I spent 8 years both managing and training individuals from each of the 4 different generations, based on the knowledge and tools that I have learned from Stephen Covey's Leading Across Generations workshop. Tonight I will be sharing some of that information with you. My hope is that you leave this evening with a basic understanding of the differences between each generation and how those differences can cause potential issues in the workplace, along with some tips on how to make those differences into a positive force and avoid the conflicts. So, I guess the first step will be to define what exactly are the differences and why are there differences. Well, there are significant events that happen during each generation that shape the values and beliefs of the people who were growing up during that time. Now, while these values and beliefs are indicative of the majority of the people within each generation, we have to remember that individuals are just that, they're individuals. So while these are indicative of the majority of people, there will be individuals within each generation that have values and beliefs outside of their generation. So traditionalists were born between 1901 and 1943, and they were influenced by the Great Depression, by World War II, and they also saw the creation and the success of large government programs and large corporations. Traditionalists value chain of command and they respect authority. They're typically patient, loyal, and disciplined. Baby boomers were born between 1944 and 1964, and they saw increased economic expansion. They saw a lot of economic expansion, and they were also influenced by television, by rock and roll, by the civil rights movement, and significant events like Vietnam and Watergate. Baby boomers are traditionally optimistic, they have high expectations, and they're also idealistic. Baby boomers are also typically competitive, and they are willing to do what it takes to get ahead. There were a lot of them in the workforce, and so they know what it's like to be competitive. Baby boomers also challenge authority, they challenge the status quo, and they question authority. Generation Xers were born between 1965 and 1981. And they saw an increase in interest rates. At the same time, they saw a decrease in job opportunities because this is the time that companies began outsourcing jobs overseas. Generation Xers were the first generation to have access to worldwide information at their fingertips because they saw computers come into the home. Another thing that Generation Xers that they were influenced by is it was the first time that the United States began to lose dominance in the world economic market because the global economic market competition increased at this time. Now, due to all of these influences, Generation Xers typically have zero organizational loyalty because they saw with their parents that it didn't really pay off to be loyal to an organization. Generation Xers are also the first generation to believe that they will be less well off than their parents. And because of this, they value a work-life balance more than previous generations have. Millennials were born between 1982 and 2003, and they were influenced by school shootings, by 9/11 and by pervasive media in their face 24/7. They are technologically savvy. They are used to having information at their fingertips 24/7. They have access to anything that they need 24/7. Millennials believe in positive reinforcement and having choices in the workplace. They are, because they know that life could end at any moment, they want their work to make a difference, and they're willing to move. They're willing to jump around until they find something that they think is meaningful. Millennials are also used to immediate gratification and instant feedback. So, what do we do with all of these differing views? Well, all of these differing views have the potential to cause friction. When they meet in the workplace, they can cause friction points, and those friction points have the potential to cause issues in the workplace. I'll be talking about two specific common friction points that have the potential to cause challenges, and we'll use these as examples. Now, these generalizations come from studies done by Franklin Covey. And again, we want to remember that these generalizations, while they're typical of most people within each generation, there are individuals, of course, who have views outside of these. So the first example is work ethic. There are few things that can get people riled up quicker in the workplace than having someone challenge their work ethic. Generation Xers and Millennials typically believe that as long as work is getting done, it doesn't matter where it's getting done, or when it's getting done, or even how long it takes to get done. As long as the work is getting done at the quality that it needs to be at, and within the deadlines that have been set, it doesn't matter if that work takes 3 hours or 10, if it was done between 8 to 5 or 3 to 9, or whether it was done in the office or at home. Now this view it conflicts quite a bit with a traditionalist view, who typically believe that work is for work and home is for family. And if I'm going to work, that work time is typically 9 to 5, and if there's work to be done, it will be done in the office. When I leave work, I'm done with work. When I come home, it's for my family. And that view differs from boomers, who, because they're so competitive and they're willing to do whatever it takes to get ahead, they typically believe that a typical work day is between 8 to 6, and they believe in taking work home. They typically do take work home, and they're perfectly willing to take work home. And they don't understand why nobody else would want to do that. So, what do we do with all of this information? Because it's one thing to know it, and it's another thing to choose to do something about it. So, what you do with this information will determine whether you have a positive experience based on these differences, or whether you jump right into that conflict. Based on my experiences, there are 3 ideas that I typically go back to and I kind of review in my head whenever I'm faced with challenges in the workplace. The first one is to remember that I have absolutely no control whatsoever over how other people act. But I am 100% in control of how I choose to act and how I choose to respond to other individuals. So remember that you have a choice in how you react and respond to your coworkers whenever you're faced with a challenge. The second is to be open to ideas and viewpoints of others. You find what you're looking for. So I encourage you to look for the strengths in your coworkers and ask yourself whenever you're faced with a challenge, am I looking for things that frustrate me, or am I looking for opportunities to learn? How you answer that question will determine how you view your coworkers and how you face challenges on an everyday basis. The third is that there are valuable lessons to be learned from other generations. Based on the influencing factors that these generations grew up with, there are things that they are traditionally good at, that they traditionally excel at. Traditionalists are typically loyal. They're known for their loyalty and they're known for their relationship building. Baby boomers are known for their work ethic, for their competitiveness, and for their willingness to get ahead. Generation Xers are known for their work-life balance. They're known for being independent, and they're known for being realistic. Millennials are known for being technologically savvy, for being great at working in groups, and for wanting and willing and wanting to make a difference in their work. So, now you know a little bit about the differences between each generation. and you've been given some examples of how those differences can cause issues in the workplace, along with some tips on how you can take those differences and make them a positive force in your life and avoid the conflict that can arise from it. So your next task is to decide what you're going to do with this information. In conclusion, I'd like to leave you with a thought. Diversity is valuable. If you have an organization that is full of individuals who think the same way and act the same way, you'll probably have very little conflict in the workplace, but you'll also have very little to no growth. So, diversity is valuable. It's important. You should desire to surround yourself with people who challenge you and who force you to look at things differently. So remember